Previously on the road to Tekken.
We went over information on the history before the events of Tekken and the events during Tekken 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then it continues. After Heihachi is presumed dead from the Jet Force suicide attack, a mysterious individual took over the financial group, and that is Jinpachi Mishima. He hosted the 5th tournament and sent a letter to his old friend Wang to meet him to find someone who can defeat him before his potential reign of terror starts. Jin Kazama went berserk because of Jinpachi's negative energy, which causes a tornado in the force. Jin returned to Yakushima, plagued by nightmares that triggered the devil gene, and he entered to figure out who's behind the tournament.
シャア、この大会が危険だ。君は帰る。
違うの。平八のじいちゃん。過去のすれ違いさえなければあんな死に方しなかったと思う。私、時間を巻き戻すの。
時間なんて戻らない。平八は死んだ。今三島を操るのはもっと恐ろしい未知の何か。
私、絶対元に戻してみせる。全部何かも。
As you have noticed, Jin fought Zhao Yu during the tournament and defeated her. He also defeated Wang because Jinpachi's life is in danger, but he defeated him because he didn't want any more problems.
Meanwhile,
however, sadly, Kazuya didn't win and left the tournament to kill every G-Corp member, leaving behind the Jet 4 attack, including Emma Clayson. Take a look at this clip.
You're the coward that ran away from danger.
なぜそのことを知っている？貴様誰？
I have no need to explain anything to you.
すぐ話す気になる。
There's nothing you could do even if I told you.
いいから言え。
We were just observing. You were betrayed by G Corporation. That's all.
そんなことは初めから分かっている。お前らが鍵回るには他にも理由があるだろうが。
We don't know yet. We're still investigating. But you must know. What was under the temple?
仕方ない。まさか。そうか。そういうことだったのか。やつめ。
Also, Jinpachi stole the scroll from China in Lei Wulong's chronicles, but he did give it back before Jin showed up.
just then, a few minutes later,
貴様、誰じゃ？
俺は風待ち。呪われた血を継ぐ者だ。
なるほど。それでわしの血もこうして反応してるというわけか。お前を食らおうとな。
足一番俺の手で立つ。
貴様にそれができるのか？このわしを倒す資格があるのか？
The battle with Jin and Jinpachi was extremely fierce, and Jin unleashed his karate punch on Jinpachi, freeing him and finally putting him to rest.
Falcon Punch! 11 minutes later,
talk about what happened to the other characters during this story, explaining the previous games that was missing in action. Since the disappearance of her sister, Anna had been leading a dull and boring life, and that all changed one day when she received a phone call from Nina. and several days later the two met once more after being apart for 2 years. However, upon seeing her sister's face, Nita immediately opened fire, with Anna returning the favor, ensuing a gun battle that lasted for endless days, and both sides had failed to land a decisive blow, and it was decided that they would settle things at the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, and Anna vowed to eliminate her sister once and for all. Meet Asuka Kazama. Ever since she was a child, Asuka received training in Kazama-style traditional martial arts from her father, and one day, Asuka's father was roughed up and sent to the hospital, and a police detective told Asuka the perpetrator was likely to enter the tournament, so she decided to enter as well. Several male characters from the Tekken 2 lineup returned in Tekken 5, including Beck. According to the game's storyline, his encounter with Ogre left him in a coma, not dead as initially presumed, and he woke up over a year later after his student Huorang already competed in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 3, and after being asked by his defense minister, Beck began teaching Taekwondo at military bases, and Huorang was drafted into the South Korean military, but he ran away to compete in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4. When he was arrested by the South Korean military police, he was informed that Beck was alive and received a letter from him asking to compete in his military service, and later Beck decides to enter the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 with Huorang to test his student's skills. Bruce Irvin is back in town, and he was once a mercenary for Kazuya, and he left Kazuya's militia 21 years ago and wound up in a survival school. And a few years later, he found Kazuya's death, and for some reason, he heard that Kazuya had fought in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4, and he also learned that the Zaibatsu would soon hold the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, and the seasoned veteran asked something what was going on behind the scenes, and he wondered who or what it could be. And he says that he needed some action, and he decided that he'll go have fun with the Mishima Zaibatsu. Ryan Fury, a replicant created by Dr. Abel, entrusted himself to Dr. Boskanovich to receive technological upgrades, and Boskanovich installed a perpetual power generator in the cyborg. Instead of thanking him, Ryan killed several people at the facility, and then he decided to enter the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament, thinking it was the perfect test for his newly installed generator. Chrissy Montiero's grandfather was released from prison after a long incarceration. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with an incurable illness, and he was given only 6 months to live, but a cure might be possible with possessing the technology from the Mishima Zaibatsu. And several days later, Chrissy learns about the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, and she sees it as a chance to save her grandfather, believing if that she possesses the advanced technology of the Mishima Zaibatsu, she may be able to find a cure for him. Now, Craig Marduk, the once undefeated Veiled Turtle fighter, unable to accept his loss to King in the previous tournament, Marduk transformed himself into the ultimate weapon, and one day Marduk, in a Black Jaguar mask, beat everyone in the Veiled Turtle tournament to a bloody pulp. King, you're next! The stage is set for a rematch at the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. Eddie Gordo's master was about to be freed from prison after a long incarceration. Eddie went to the prison to meet his master, but instead he found a frail old man that was only the shadow of the strong capoeira master he once knew. And upon taking his master to a hospital, Eddie was told his master had an incurable illness and had less than 6 months to live. However, it may be possible to discover the cure if they had access to the technology and the resources of the Mishima Zaibatsu. And several days later, Eddie decides to enter the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 with Christy. Meet Feng Wei. As a young boy, Feng was raised as a disciple by a chemo master who was so skilled that he was known as a Shinken, or literally Godfist. At 20 years of age, Feng was the best student in the school had ever seen, and when his master scolded him for fighting outside the dojo, Feng killed him. Now Feng seeks the secrets of the Godfist scroll stolen by the Mishima family, and he enters the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament to do so. Ganryu's back in town, and he had been the youngest ever to attain the rank of Ozeki in sumo. And after competing in the 2 King of Iron Fist tournaments, Ganryu established a sumo stable in Hawaii as part of his plan for a luxurious retirement. Even though he was rejected by Michelle, he was happy of how things turned out. And one day, Ganryu, now 55 years old, was watching a video of King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 and spotted Julia Chang, who reminded him of Michelle. And he immediately fell head over heels with her, and he had also learned that Julia had entered the tournament to recover the reforestation data from the Mishima Zaibatsu. And it was shortly after that an invitation with the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 arrived, and Ganryu thought that winning the tournament would provide him the perfect opportunity to recover the reforestation program, and surely Julia would fall madly in love with him if he were able to recover the data. The South Korean army arrested and took Hwoarang into custody during the last round of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4, keeping him from his long-awaited fight with Jin Kazama. And 2 months later, he was discharged from military service, and without holding him back, Hwoarang is free to pursue a confrontation with Jin Kazama. Jack was given an upgrade, Jack 5, created by Jane as an upgrade of Jack 4, and was entered into the 5th tournament as a means of testing him. Julia Chang continues her research on forest rejuvenation, and she was disappointed that she was unable to recover the reforestation data during the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4, and Julia returns home and resumes her research. And each time her work hits a dead end, she is reminded of the data that she was unable to retrieve. And at that point, she later received a letter addressed to her in a foreign language, and attached is an announcement of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. In order to fulfill her hopes of forest rejuvenation, Julia decides to enter the tournament. After the events of Tekken 4, Marduk donned a black jaguar mask and challenged King II to a rematch with television. An arranged body assault on his master's honor, King II resolved to settle the score in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. And during his 4th match in the tournament, he fought Julia Chang, and Julia told King II to stop fighting just because Marduk called him out. And King refused to allow such disgrace to his master, and Julia had to stop King by herself. However, King II was the victor in the match and was given even more fuel to beat Marduk. 2 wins after this, and he had the chance to fight Marduk. And Marduk adamantly stated that he would beat King II fair and square. Once again, however, King II won, and Marduk conceded defeat, and King offered his hand in friendship, reconciling the differences between the two. Kuma II finally defeated Paul in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4. However, his master Heihachi was dead, and Kuma II was all alone without Heihachi, and when he realized that the Mishima Zaibatsu was in trouble, he knew what to do. He wanted to save the Zaibatsu. And when Kuma II reached headquarters, he heard someone had taken control and announced the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. And Kuma II vows revenge to save the Zaibatsu for his master, and he enters the tournament. Li Chaolan entered the previous tournament in disguise to defeat Heihachi, and however standing in his way was Kazuya, who was presumed dead from the second King of Iron Fist tournament, and Li lost to Kazuya. His fight focused in the tournament, and with his master's death, Li plans to take on the Zaibatsu, but he was too late, and he mutters that Kazuya always gets in his way. And a month later, the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 was announced, and Li was determined to have a rematch against Kazuya and take the Zaibatsu from him. Lei Wulong is the Interpol detective from Hong Kong, aka Super Police, and Lei was investigating serial rampage incidents at dojos around China when the culprit disappeared. And after a similar incident in Japan, Lei was certain that the next target would be the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 and decided to enter the competition for himself. Ling Xiaoyu cried when she heard that Heihachi had been killed, and in her sorrow she wished she could go back in time. And one day, Xiaoyu met a self-proclaimed genius who boasted he could invent a time machine if he only had the money. And to fund the invention, Xiaoyu decided to enter the tournament. Martial law failed to win the last tournament and tried to revive his career, and he stayed in Japan to make money as a dishwasher. A month later, Mrs. Law called him and told him Forrest had been in an accident concerning Paul Phoenix's bike. And Law decides to enter the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 to pay for his son's medical bills. Mokujin is back in town, a wooden dummy made from white oak that was used to train martial artists. And 2 years ago, Mokujin developed a mind of his own, and he started to move, but he ceased moving after Ogre was defeated by Jin Kazama. And when he returned to the museum, Mokujin's face seemed to be smiling. And once again, Mokujin had started to move upon the emergence of a powerful entity. Will Mokujin ever be free? Nina Williams is an assassin with no memories of her past. And the syndicate told Nina that Steve Fox was her son, but she felt nothing. Instead, she decided to meet her sister Anna to recover her past, but soon Nina's memories rushed back to her. And in the end, they decided to settle rivalry in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. After the conclusion of King Iron Fist Tournament 4, Ling Xiaoyu had been feeling depressed, and Panda thought long and hard about how she could make Xiaoyu happy again. And Panda decided that the best approach would be to find Jin Kazama. And Panda searched for Jin, but she was unable to find him. And one day, Xiaoyu came to her excited. Panda, I have decided to enter King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, and I need your help once again. Panda didn't quite understand Xiaoyu's reason for entering the tournament, but she decided to help if it would make her happy. Paul Phoenix had suddenly recognized his overconfidence when he was dealt with a severe blow and lost the last tournament, and he had forgotten some important lessons and strayed from the path to becoming a great fighter, wanting to rediscover what he had lost. And 2 months later, he had entered the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. Meet the International Intelligence Agent, considered a highly skilled and iron-hearted, codename Raven. Apart from a scar in the shape of an X on his face, his details including age and nationality are unknown. And Raven entered the 5th tournament to find out who or what was behind the event. And you might have noticed that he makes his first appearance in the opening movie for Tekken 5 as he witnesses the attack on Honmaru by the Jack Force while on a mission to look for the Mishima Zaibatsu and G Corporation, as well as the subsequent explosion. And it seems supposed that he was the first one to report of Heihachi Mishima's supposed death. Meet Roger Jr. 20 years earlier, before the events of Tekken 5 during the second Iron Fist tournament, Kazuya Mishima, the CEO at the time, ordered his scientists to create a new type of military weapon, and this entity was known as Roger. A few years after the death of Kazuya, Roger ran away and met a female kangaroo, and then they had a child, whom they decided to name Roger Jr. Steve Fox, a boxing prodigy striving to be the world champion, and Steve had entered the previous tournament to look into the mystery of his birth, and Wei Lulong helped Steve discover that he was actually a creation of the Mishima Zaibatsu, and Steve vowed revenge. And just then, Steve learned the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, the world champion, enters without a second thought, and a determined Steve says that the Mishima Zaibatsu will never make another monster like me. Wang Jinrei, the relentless merchant, is back in town. Jinpachi, his childhood friend, once told Wang to preserve peace. I must put an end to the Mishima bloodline. And those were Jinpachi's last words to him. And 30 years after Wang had heard of Jinpachi's death, he had received an invitation to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. I need your help. Come see me, Jinrei. And the letter was signed Jinpachi Mishima, and a confused Jinrei says, What? Jinpachi is alive? And Wang enters the tournament to see if his long-lost friend still lives. Yoshimitsu is a ninja helping the poor. While breaking into the Mishima Zaibatsu's vault, he found an injured Brian Fury and helped him escape. And a month later, when Yoshimitsu visits Dr. Boskanovich's lab, he finds his comrades dead. And this was Brian's thanks. He shall pay for what he has done, says Yoshimitsu. And learning Brian will fight in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, Yoshimitsu sharpens his sword and enters the fray. Meet Armor King II. Even though Armor King I had been killed, a new fighter entered the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 donning the Black Jaguar mask. And during the fourth match of the tournament, he fought Krang Marduk. And Marduk had no idea who the fighter was, but fought anyway. And this fighter, now dubbed Armor King for the sake of his fighting, won the match. And when Marduk asked who he is, Armor King responded with a kick to the head. Meet Emilie Lily de Rochefort. She's the only daughter of a wealthy oil magnate in Monaco. And 4 years ago, she was captured and held ransom for that very reason. And while in captivity, she struggled violently to free herself, taking out one of her captors. And that fight triggered her hunger for battle. However, Lily's father was a good-hearted man who hated conflict. I don't want father to be upset with me, but I also want to fight. And Lily could no longer control her urge to fight. And under the guise of a simple vacation, she used the family's private jet to take part in street fighting tournaments around the world. And one day, she realizes an invitation to a certain fighting tournament from an opponent she defeated in San Francisco. And Lily soon realizes that this tournament was none other than the Mishima Zaibatsu, the main source of her father's problems. And she decides to enter the tournament to put an end to her father's business troubles. Meet Sergei Dragunov, a frozen land buried in dense subarctic forests. While undergoing geological research in preparation for the development of natural resources, an anomalous object is discovered below the permafrost, and the military quickly calls special forces into the action, and the entire area is completely sealed off. and the mysterious object is then transferred into the absolute secrecy to a research facility for further study. And a month later, military headquarters received an investigative report regarding the mysterious object and decides to order one of the men to start working at the dig for a clandestine mission. And that man is Dragunov, a member of the elite forces team who had feared battlefronts throughout the world as the White Angel of Death. And he acknowledges the mission with a silent nod and leaves for Japan. Here's what happened to Heihachi for real. After losing to Jin Kazama, Heihachi was cornered by a group of jack robots in Hamaru. Heihachi and Kazuya began to fight off the jacks together, but Kazuya fled and Heihachi was caught in the explosion when the jacks detonated. And the tremendous explosion would have killed a normal man, but Heihachi, no ordinary man, managed to survive. And a month later, Heihachi learned that someone had taken control of the Mishima Zaibatsu and planned to hold the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. And Heihachi, having fully recovered, was determined to enter the tournament. And he says that he doesn't even know who was behind all this, but the Mishima Zaibatsu belongs to him. And here is what happened to Kazuya. And following their defeats to Jin, Kazuya and Heihachi are ambushed by a squad of Jack 4s, who have been sent by G Corporation to destroy Kazuya and Heihachi. And the father and son are forced to work together to fight off the Jacks until Kazuya throws Heihachi into a group of Jack robots and leaves him to die in the ensuing explosion. And when a mysterious man takes over the Mishima Zaibatsu and announces the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, Kazuya enters to track down those who have betrayed him and discover the sponsor's identity. And during the tournament, Kazuya crosses paths with Raven, who recognizes him after seeing him fly away from the Hanmaru, and Kazuya defeats Raven and interrogates him. And it is during this little conversation that Kazuya finally learns who is holding the tournament. His grandfather, Jinpachi Mishima, suspecting Heihachi's hand in his disappearance. It is unknown how Kazuya progressed throughout the tournament.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This video is a pain more than it should have, so I'm splitting it into 2 parts.